Hi, I'm James Mawson, founder and editor-in-chief of Global Corporate Venture, and I've got great pleasure to have the honor of introducing the GCV Institute Meet the Institute Experts webinar featuring Bill McNulty from Capital One Ventures. So we set up the GCV Institute to be by CVCs for CVCs, and this is our collective ambition for the Institute to further enable, support, grow and strengthen the key role that corporations play within the wider innovation ecosystem. This in turn will ensure that GCV, or Global Corporate Venturing, continues to fulfill its broader mission to bring together the leading investors, corporations, entrepreneurs, and executives across the globe to build the innovative technologies and companies that will define and shape the world of tomorrow. And so together with our partners at Bell Mason Group and with you, the industry leaders, we have the opportunity to not only further shape and influence corporate venture and industry advancement, but also ensure longevity and sustained innovation ecosystem impact. So I will now hand over, once we move to the second slide about today's agenda, I'll be able to hand over to Patty Burke, who's now a fellow at BMG and a designer for the Institute. Most recently, she's been at the Center for Creative Leaders in an innovation role after 6 years with BMG and serial sort of marketing and entrepreneurship before that, as well as VC roles. And so today's agenda will see us bring together the Institute curriculum update, as well as the expert Q&A between Liz Arrington, our partner at BMG, as well as Bill McNulty from Capital One. And then we'll move into the networking breakout groups, which will be facilitated by a number of our experts to be able to make sure that you can ask the questions that you want to do and share your leadership. So, Patty, over to you.
Great. Thanks, Jim. I just want to give a shout out to Tammy Hutchinson, who is Vice President at Intel Capital and leads their portfolio development function. This was actually Tammy's idea to have networking breakout groups. She said, it's just so great to hear from the Institute. And every time that I have a discussion about the Institute, I learn from it, and why don't we make that available to everyone? So thank you, Tammy, and I think she'll be here. If she's not with us yet, she'll be here and join us in the networking breakout groups. So as James said, thanks for that intro, Jim. We're going to give a bit of information on the curriculum, but I really wanted to start with this corporate venturing program landscape graphic developed by Liz and Heidi Mason as they developed the content for their book, Corporate Venture Survival Guide. I think you all who are all mostly in corporate venturing or interested in corporate venturing are going to recognize this, although I think Bell Mason Group is the first one to really put this down in writing. But this is not an easy task, and it's an important task. GCV shows that more than 25% of the deals done today include corporate ventures. So corporate venturing is becoming much more important. You all are becoming a much more important part of the innovation ecosystem, and yet you have a very tough job. So if you look at the relationship between the actual investing team in the turquoise bars there, we're seeing an addition of the corporate venture business development landing team. This is also called portfolio development, market development. And, it's not really new. Obviously, Intel has been doing it for 15, 20 years, as have many other groups, but we're seeing it become very mainstream now. And that's really one of the reasons that we decided to focus on this topic for several of the Institute courses. Parent corporation business partners on the right-hand side here, your business unit managers, the people who catch the investment and help you leverage the investment, R&D, innovation. These folks, it's kind of a foreign language to them. So we really wanted to provide the background and the basics for corporate business partners, as well as shared services across the bottom who work with investing and landing groups to understand the basics of corporate venture capital, and in some cases to really take a deep dive and understand a lot of the dynamics. The other challenge here that you all face is as the dynamic nature of these groups. So, there's constant rotational roles. And of course, in the business unit on the side and also in shared services and most parent functions, people are changing all the time. Or you need to work with different people. There may be someone in charge of regulatory that you would work with, maybe someone, in charge of procurement. These functions change frequently. So getting a common language and a common understanding of corporate venturing, we really feel will be key to success for you in corporate venturing. So this is how we're attacking this challenge. This is the curriculum roadmap. These courses are all live online at this point, so Zoom oriented, although we now have a learning management system that allows us to do the programs with a self-paced element. So that's going to make it just a lot more interactive. We strive to make these as interactive as possible. As Jim said, one of the tenets of the Institute is by CVCs for CVCs. So we use lots of experts, lots of interaction within the groups, as well as with outside experts. So, some really good interaction there. The first level of the curriculum are the essentials. So these are the common language and context. Essentials for Enterprise addresses those enterprise players, as well as the CVBD and portfolio development folks, as well as the parent, both shared services and the business units, innovation units, et cetera. CVC Essentials is a replacement for the GCV Academy, and we're lucky to have Paul Morris, and I think Paul Morris is on today. Paul, who did the Academy for many years, is helping us co-develop that course, and we'll be co-facilitating it also. So that will be launching in June. And then into the second layer with the deep dives, Landing the Value of Corporate Venturing really is our flagship course. That was our pilot course. We wrapped that up last year in January. And actually, Bill McNulty was an expert as well as a participant on that course. We will be offering a high performance, really very deep dive strategic investing course in 2022. But let me say a word about Landing the Value, since that is our next up course in May. That one kicks off May 17th. That is a 3-month learning journey style course that's designed to prepare you for the learning. And then there are 3 days of what we call the immerse sessions, which are 3 hours, 2 to 3 hour Zoom sessions, highly interactive, really going deep in all of the elements of the investment pipeline. So Liz will show you that in a second, and you'll see the real analysis that we've done of that. This includes many experts. I think we had something like 20 expert videos and expert interaction, live folks on that course. And the hallmark of that course really is the challenge. So these groups, and we like to see groups, pods, as we call them, of 3 to 4 people in this course, developing a challenge that they then work on throughout the 3 months of the course to accomplish a task that is of value and will deliver results to their unit. We provide them with a seasoned mentor who works with them on the last month of the course, and then they deliver the results of that challenge to their peers and also to the head of their unit. So we've seen some great results from those challenges, and that's been a really exciting course. So if you're interested in that deep dive course, please contact us. That's one that we're equally as excited about, and particularly since it was our pilot. Hot Topics is our third layer. We'll be announcing those late in the second quarter and begin those in the third quarter. And you can see that those are a number of topics that we'll be doing with partners that are very popular. We hear about all the time from folks like you. So look for those. And then lastly, Institute Community. Today is an example of that. And we hope to have more of these community events, and we'll also be having some alumni events that will be invitation only, providing some extra content, extra topical information to the alumni. And many of these events, it will include the mentors and the experts who have participated as advisors to the Institute. So that's big picture curriculum. Just a word about the essentials courses, these foundational courses, because obviously we think that these are going to be very important to many of you. We've actually spoken with many folks who think that they would attend both the Essentials for Enterprise and the CVC Essentials. CVC Essentials being the nuts and bolts of investing, perfect for those planning to start a new group or with our new investors. CV team members who are new, and shared services professionals who support the investment cycle, finance, legal, etc. On the left-hand side, Essentials for Enterprise. This is the one that really brings in the parent perspective. And we have a very unique approach on this one that we're actually filming the videos for next week, where we're going to have a very well-known unit who will talk about one of their investments, and we'll be interviewing the venture investor, the corporate venture business development, the representative from the parent, and the startup. So you'll really be able to see how that value is delivered both to the portfolio and the portfolio company, as well as the parent, and what that process is and what are those steps are along the investment cycle. So we're really excited about that approach, and that'll be in the Essentials for Enterprise. And here's a bit more detail on Essentials for Enterprise by CVCs for CVCs. About corporate venturing, those core models that your team and the parent need to understand, maturity cycle, the role in the innovation strategy. I'm actually working on this startup section right now. So that startup mindset, getting the corporation to understand how different that startup mindset can be from the corporate mindset, the clock rate, just about everything, the risk profile, very different from corporate. So understanding that, and also understanding the incredible assets that corporates can offer to startups and how to make those available on a timely basis. End-to-end investing, we mentioned, and then lastly, startup partner readiness. So how to get ready to partner, how to partner effectively, and how to align the corporate startup outreach, CVCs, scouts, BDs, BUs, folks who are reaching out to startups, how to outline that and make that a coordinated effort. So that's Essentials for Enterprise coming April 27th, 28th. We're very excited about that and excited that we're already getting quite a few registrations for that program. So with that, let me let the experts talk. And those would be Liz Arrington, partner with Bell Mason Group, and Bill McNulty. Liz, of course, I meant to have the book here, but Liz, of course, is the co-author with Heidi Mason and Jim Mawson of the Corporate Venture Survival Guide. And I have spoken with many people who say that is our Bible. We keep it as a reference material. So a great book. She founded the Institute. She collaborates with many other industry groups and has been in her earlier career an advisor to a number of VCs, portfolio companies, CVCs, BDs, et cetera. And then she gives back through this organization that is designed to provide funding for equine therapy. So you'll see when Liz is not working on CVC, you'll find her with her horses. And then Bill, of course, I got to know Bill on the pilot. He participated in landing the value of corporate venturing and led a pod with that in that pilot group, and was also one of our experts in that pilot course. He is an operating partner, so very involved in many aspects of Capital One Ventures, and leads the corporate venture business development group. He can tell you what they're called there. They do come under a number of names, and has had some incredibly successful tales and exits that he'll talk about. First operating partner there, had been in EIR, had some startup experience, which I'm sure has served him very well in his role with 2 startups, and then had great background in M&A with JP Morgan Chase, and he is a Princeton man. So with that, let me turn it over to Liz. And Liz can talk about the investment life cycle and start quizzing Bill. Here you go, Liz.
Great. Thanks very much, Patty. Thank you, Bill. Welcome, everyone. As context for our conversation with Bill, I'd like to spend just a quick moment looking at this slide, which is a drill down on the slide that Patty showed earlier, the end-to-end investing slide. And this slide really represents the trajectory of an end-to-end relationship between a startup and the parent. It starts with, when the portfolio company is a kind of a gleam in the eye of the CVC program, moving through investment to ultimately to meaningful parent impact. And if you look at this slide, the top row represents the potential roles and contributions of the investment function. And the bottom row represents the corporate venture business development. It's also called portfolio development. In the case of Capital One, it's venture development. We use corporate venture business development as an umbrella function. And what's important about this is that increasingly we're seeing, the high performing units really aligning the investment and the CVBD or engagement activities into a single blended pipeline that really integrates, both of these functions and provides benefit both to the portfolio company as well as to the parent. But we should highlight it's not always a linear relationship. In some cases, the engagement may happen before the investment. In other cases, it may actually be a requirement of the investment. But what we'd like to do today is hear from Bill McNulty about how Capital One has built, I think, one of the premier engagement platforms that we've seen in the corporate venture capital space. And they've really done an amazing job building this platform for engagement and delivering impact. So as a starting point, Bill, can we get you to just spend a minute telling us a little bit about, giving an overview, telling us a little bit about the Capital One program?
Sure. And hello, everyone. Thanks, Liz and Patty, for having me today. So Capital One Ventures is about a little over 6 years old now. And we're based in, San Francisco, New York, and outside of DC, where Capital One is headquartered. We've been picking up steam over the course of those years. I joined 4 years ago to build out the operating side of the group. Just a little bit on how we're organized. We have three functions on the team. Our investment function, which is what we started with, venture development, which I helped build starting 4 years ago. And our most recent function that we're adding is venture tech, which is designed to help facilitate partnerships that we develop through our venture activities. We're organized across a number of practices. That's how we organize our team, both from a venture development standpoint and venture investment standpoint. And one of the key metrics that we focus on is around driving strategic value for Capital One. We measure that in a number of ways, but one shorthand is that around 70% of our portfolio end up engaging commercially with Capital One.
Great. Well, from day one, you guys have really been laser focused on landing the value of the program. And how did you get started with this activity, and how have you evolved over the few years that you've been in existence?
Yeah, I think the story is basically, from ad hoc to more systematic is how we've developed. So when we started, it was just me. I was the one person down at headquarters trying to build a bridge between our portfolio and Capital One. We wanted to make sure that we're not perceived as people who just are out there excited about startups and doing deals. We want to make sure that we're perceived by our investment committee and all the senior executives at Capital One as really delivering strategic value. So, I got started by just getting to know our portfolio company, developing a map of Capital One. I'd known it, as an employee for 3 years when I joined, but really trying to get a map of the company. What are our big problems? Where are the points of leverage that startups can make a difference? So that was kind of in our first phase. Then towards the end of my first year, we put in place like a measurement framework for strategic value. So we were doing all of the normal metrics on the financial side. We wanted to put in place something on the strategic side to kind of hold us accountable and really determine what we're going to be driving for on developing strategic value. So we put that in place and incorporated it into our regular reporting out to our investment committee and other senior executives. With that in place, we did do some awareness building with events and kind of internal conferences that helped raise awareness of the group's activity and kind of what we do, what our function was. And then we brought on more staff on the operating side or the venture development side. And with those additional staff members, we needed to put in place more systems and processes. That's when we developed the notion of practices. These align roughly with business units and major technology functions at Capital One. And today we have venture development and investment partners aligned with those practices. Each of us have 2 or 3. And we have kind of individual practice meetings and practice plans, which involve, what are the key problems we're working on? Who are the key executives we're aligned against? How are we, having regular rhythms with them? And that's been pretty successful at kind of deepening our dialogues with those business and tech group leaders. As I mentioned, our next phase is around venture tech, which is we find that, one constraint we have is around, technical adoption and answering questions around like, will this work? How much effort will it be to, and the business units we're trying to kind of work with don't have the resources to answer those questions necessarily. So we're bringing a function into our group that can help answer those questions. We're starting with 1 dedicated engineer. We'll be building it out by 2 or 3. And that function will be to facilitate both evaluation and then post-deal adoption of our portfolio companies' technologies.
So does this group play a PMO kind of role, or is it more like a systems engineering, technical consulting sort of role?
Yeah, more the latter. We do have a full-time program manager who helps us, track our portfolios, over 40 active companies now. So, we do have the dashboards, the reporting and things like that we have someone dedicated to who also works on kind of post-deal. Mm-hmm. But this venture tech will be, we hired someone from our distinguished engineer community who's deeply technical, full stack person who can help us more with like architectural questions and also knows the engineering organization to mm-hmm. find us, the right level of expertise we need to evaluate companies.
What have been the biggest challenges that you have faced in preparing the business units to engage with startups?
Yeah, I think these are not necessarily going to be typical or unusual, rather. They are going to be typical for most large corporates. I'm lucky that at Capital One, we have all the organizational issues that any large company has, but people do believe in technology and they do, believe in innovation. So we have kind of a lean towards considering new technologies and pushing for change. So I'm lucky in that respect, in that we have a overall bias towards seeing technology as useful. Now, that said, we do have something of a build culture. We have, 10,000 engineers, and you don't have that many engineers, and without them wanting to do stuff and build stuff. So we do, as the group that's trying to facilitate partnerships rather than the build option, we do face that. And interestingly, the more senior you go, the less that exists and the more kind of interested they are in trying partnerships. But at the kind of middle level, you do have people who are interested in building things and things like that. So our challenge is to how to position partnerships as an accelerant of their build goals.
Yeah.
You can build on top of this partner or customize this partner.
Yeah, that's good.
So we try not to work against that, but rather show how partners can help them accelerate that.
Right.
The second thing from a culture standpoint is Capital One's a very data-driven organization, and the nature of startups are, they're not always proven, especially at our scale. So we face that, and it's kind of, we're in the unknown, and people at Capital One like to run the tests and, prove things out with data at scale. And so we face that a little bit, and that's a hard one to overcome. But, we do it through pilots and other things like that. We have the typical resource constraints that any large company has. And then the one that's been more kind of interesting is the technical constraints. And I mentioned we're trying to bring in this venture tech function to help us with these. But there's a tension in large organizations around how do we work with SaaS companies, with multi-tenant software systems when we don't want to share any of our data.
Mm-hmm.
So, we do face technical constraints as well, which, I won't go into, but are big challenges for, a regulated institution that's very sensitive to its customer data. Absolutely.
Well, we've only got a few more minutes with Bill before the networking, and I wanted to open it up and see if anyone attending has a question for Bill. If you have anything that you want to drop in the chat to ask Bill, then otherwise I'll continue to pepper him with questions. Looks not. So I've got another question for you, Bill.
Sure.
Within large companies, you often find that there are many different groups coming from different organizations. Oh, it looks like we got a question. Okay, let's see. Question for Bill. How difficult is it to get good, consistent information on your portfolio companies?
Yeah, that's a good question. Early on in our development, we didn't always make sure we had information rights. And we were often putting in small amounts of money and didn't really have a lot of access, board observer, things of that sort. We've tried to make that like very much a part of all of our investments now, that we have full information rights where we are getting the quarterly financials, board decks if possible. Sometimes that's a little sensitive. And we use the excuse of just kind of needing it for our reporting purposes and of course regulators. But we did find a challenge early on. We've just made it really like an absolute must in closing deals that either if it's in a side letter or something that we have those information rights so that we can monitor our portfolio adequately.
Okay. Here's another good question. When in the portfolio life cycle, i.e. the number of companies, did you split out venture investing from venture development into distinct and different roles and people? So when did your fund get set up?
Somewhere between 15 and 20 companies.
Yeah, our experience has been usually when you get to like 10 companies, then you start thinking about it. And usually in the development cycle of a program, it's usually in kind of year 3, 4.
Yeah, that sounds right for our experience. And I think we were a team of maybe 8 at the time when we started to kind of, maybe I was the 9th person to join, or maybe the 8th person to join when we started to specialize that function. So it was senior and junior investment and support people before that.
Okay, great.
Yeah, quick. We're getting more questions and it's time to go to the breakouts now, but let's see, quick question. Any major challenges with institutional VCs? Bill, that you faced?
Yeah, the short answer is we do sometimes get objections in the earlier stages. So we've been crowded out of a couple of A's that we've been very interested in because, they were advised by institutional investors that they weren't ready for strategic capital. We've seen that objection less or lessening over time. It kind of ties back to, I think, the comment made earlier about the growth in CVC, percentage involvement in deals. But we still do face it a little bit. And as a result, we're not in as many A's as we'd like. Of course, we do want companies who have, are closer to product market fit. So it's not a huge problem for us.
This one is, I think, a good and a question that everyone faces is, what is your approach to IP management when testing or co-developing startup solutions?
That is a tricky one.
$10,000 question.
Yeah. And I'd be happy to follow up offline with some of these additional questions. I think, either I'm bill.mcnulty@capitalone.com. But, with the IP one, it's something that we do cover in, right up front from NDAs. We try to stay away from NDAs until the business units are involved. But once the business units are involved, we have very strict NDAs that talk about anything we learn that's not forgettable, right? So not tied to like specific documents is non-confidential. That's kind of like the key provision, so that if we're learning things just over the course of our relationship that we can't forget, it's not considered confidential. Now, we rarely have anyone who objects to that, but that is very kind of corporate friendly language. Mm-hmm. I acknowledge that as a former startup person, but that's kind of how we handle it. We're very strict on just trying to be very corporate friendly and the NDA terms and any, of course, commercial agreements that we enter into thereafter.
That's great, Bill. I appreciate that. And we do have a couple more questions, but I think we'll save this chat and make sure that we get back to everyone because I do want to make sure that we go to the breakouts. So I'm going to hopefully share my screen again. And I thought it would go back to where I was, but it didn't. Let's go back to the breakout. Okay, so what we're going to do now is put you into some breakouts. And we'll have one of our experts in each breakout. And what we'd like is for folks to share an example of how your parent worked collaboratively with a startup. We thought this would be really insightful to hear from you and to have you exchange those ideas. So who was involved from the parent and what was the value to both the parent and the startup? And then any challenges. So if we could spend 10 minutes having a quick breakout and having that discussion, and then we'll bring you back for a wrap up. Yeah. So yes. Last slide. We will be having more Meet the Expert networking events. So hopefully with some longer breakouts at that point. And I mentioned some of the other types of events that we'll be having for the Institute community and the alumni network. Here are the upcoming dates. And of course, this is on our website, or contact the Institute website or any of us about if you're interested in these programs. Essentials for Enterprise coming up at the end of the month, and we'll be actually contacting folks involved in that in 2 weeks. So that one you should speak to us about soon. Landing the Value of Corporate Venturing. This is the deep dive. That's one where we would want to have quite a bit of interaction with you to help you develop your challenge and to understand who should participate in this 3-month program. So let us know if you're interested in that. And CVC Essentials, June 8th to 9th, the basics of corporate venture investing. See website for additional runs. And also we will be doing Asia-friendly time zones in the fall, because we don't want people to necessarily have to stay up or get up or stay up for that. So thanks so much for participating in this first experimental Meet the Experts. We have so many experts working with the Institute that we plan to bring out more frequently, and we'll hope to see you on our next webinar.
And thank you, Bill McNulty, for sharing your time and your expertise and your wisdom. You know, you guys are really an exemplar program, and we appreciate the value that you've delivered to everyone today.
Thanks so
Absolutely.
much. I enjoyed doing it.
Thank you so much, Bill. Good. Okay, bye-bye, everyone.
Yeah, great meeting everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.